Welcome to another edition of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. I'm your host, Mike Moore. Really excited about today's episode. We've got Skylar Talley with us. He's the co-founder and CEO of MedScout. Tyler, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you?
We're good. Yeah, we're all good, man. I'm excited that we could carve out some time to do this. I know you guys are going a mile a minute over there and making big strides, but I definitely wanted to get you guys on the show. Um, for the listeners out there that have been listening, and as we discussed before, the kind of the ethos of this show is spotlighting bleeding edge, cutting edge technologies that are really I think going to either reshape a market or create a brand new market, and that's not always those aren't always patient facing technologies in the form of implants, devices, etc. A lot of times there's technologies that don't even come in contact with the patient at any point that can have a considerable impact on the delivery of care. And as I started to learn more about what you guys had going on, was just really caught my eye, really enamored with the technology. And frankly, I was thinking back to the time when I was a rep and how this would have been so impactful and powerful. So definitely looking forward to getting into the weeds with you here. One of the things that'll be unique about this show, if for those of you that are listening audio wise, you may want to tune into a video feed at some point, because this is the first time on the show we're actually going to do a demo of a technology live here from a screen share perspective, and really allow the listeners to be able to see what you guys have going on. This was breaking barriers for me, the non-tech oriented individual having to figure out how to do a screen share on this medium was quite a feat. So anyways, what I like to do, Skylar, is I'd just like to have you kind of run us through so MedScout, it's in short a revenue acceleration platform, but
Right.
give us a little background of just an overview of the product and kind of what I guess its intended use.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head in terms of the short descriptor, right? And where we feel like we're potentially creating a category here is building a revenue acceleration platform specifically for med tech companies, and then later extending that out into other parts of life science, but really focused right now on kind of that early to grow stage medical device company. Maybe you're thinking through hiring your first commercial team, all the way to 60 to 70 reps in the field, and even a bit more than that potentially. So that's what we feel like kind of our sweet spot is from a customer standpoint. And really, to put it in simple terms, we're going to help you create a better territory model. And within those territories, we're going to help you create more effective sales plans. That's kind of our laser focus. And from a history standpoint, really it started from, to your earlier point, the perspective of reps. We spent a lot of time at the end of 2020 and then really throughout all of 2021 and even today, speaking with every rep that we could. We still onboard every user individually to the platform, every individual rep. So we feel like that has come out in the product, and we're really proud of that we feel like we built something that the rep can put to use immediately and on a regular basis to drive better results in their territory.
Looking at the website and then having you guys run me through a demo, I think one of the things that I felt was really compelling about this was one, let's get this on the table right now. The amount of the nature of the information that you guys are providing is jaw dropping. It's really, I mean, I'll let the listeners be the judge for themselves later in the demo, but I was shocked. But I think what's important to note, but I wouldn't look at this as like the type of thing, okay, we're going to, beginning of the year, we're going to use this as a territory planning tool. If I had the capabilities when I was in the field, I would have had my laptop sitting, right next to me in the car every day before I went into an account, pulling up, I mean, I think it's something that you can really use on an ongoing basis. There's so many things in there. Yes, I think it's great for carving out territories and territory planning
Yep.
and business planning, but to be able to use this stuff on an ongoing basis, this kind of intelligence is just, it's certainly pretty powerful. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting into that. Let's start with this. Why don't you describe kind of the problem that this solved? I'm familiar kind of with the genesis of how this thing started, but walk us through that. Like, why did you guys create this?
Yeah, absolutely. It started with my co-founder Casey helping his dad. Casey Shattuck Sr. had just gone to a new startup in the cardiovascular space, wanted to be really thoughtful and data driven about where he placed his first reps, who they focused on, said he could put numbers on the board as soon as possible, right? That was the sort of founding insight. Casey and his dad worked on this together. Casey had a few other companies that were paying for access to the platform whenever I came on. And then we really sort of expanded the aperture to talk to a ton of other people in medical technology. And the problems that became clear, I kind of think of them in sort of three buckets. There's the individual sales rep, which to your point should be being thoughtful in their territory about where they spend their time, their approach within a certain account with a certain physician. And whenever I talked to individual sales reps, a lot of times they were still on Google. They were still looking at hospital websites, still looking at clinical websites, still making calls into the setting of care, trying to understand who was doing what, the preferences of a certain physician, XYZ, a lot of wasted time, right? We felt like there was an opportunity to make them much more efficient and data driven in their territory, which frees up time in their day so that they can actually focus on doing their job, which is selling. And then a lot of times post sales support, making sure those accounts are successful. The other thing that kind of became clear is whenever we talk to reps and we ask them, how do you keep track of where growth is going to come from in your territory? What does that look like? A lot of times it was sort of disconnected from the systems that were at play within the larger company. So not only were they spending a lot of time doing sort of manual research, but that their targets that they were researching weren't really documented in a way where their sales manager, who maybe has experience in the territory or could provide some coaching on the strategy, didn't have full visibility into that. So it was a lot of manual pipeline review calls, like who'd you call on this week? Where are you going to go next week? All those sorts of things, which aren't really a good use of anybody's time, right? We want to free up time for the sales rep to spend time with their family and then also, again, to doing core selling activities. So that's on the rep side. On the sales management side, they are thinking through, they're signing up for quotas, they're signing up for growth numbers across the territories that they manage, but didn't really, again, have the visibility at sort of a tactical level of where that growth was going to come from, and didn't have a lot of confidence on signing up for that number and what that actually looked like from an account perspective and where they were going to focus and how confident they should be in signing up for that number. So we wanted to give the sales management team a lot more visibility as well, in addition to helping them think through, okay, we're going to hire 2 reps in our regions. How does that change the territory model? Where should we think about splitting things up? How do we go from 6 to 12, 12 to 24? We talked to a lot of them, and some of them were bringing on, if you're in a well-funded company, you could bring on somebody like ZS Associates to come in and do a full bore consulting agreement, but nobody had really provided a software platform that allowed you to quickly take your targeting criteria and then sort of do the scenario modeling of this is what 6 reps looks like, this is what 12 reps look like, so on and so forth. So we felt like that was going to be a good value add for management as well and a problem to solve. And then finally, within sort of the marketing bucket, we had talked to a lot of marketing teams that were starting to think through what does digital demand generation look like? How do we go build sort of demand in the territories for our team? But we saw that the handoff to the sales team was actually kind of broken. Some people had it really figured out in Salesforce, but a lot of times in smaller companies, it was handing off, hey, this person came to a webinar, they're in your territory, you should follow up with them. And anytime you have a manual process like that, it's going to be prone to breakage. And then the other thing is that there's not really a feedback loop associated with it. So you could go to that trade show, you could run that webinar, and then hand those leads off. Well, what happened? What was the ROI on that? Where do they go in the sales cycle? Where do they fall off? So we wanted to sort of connect the dots and build more linkage in between marketing efforts and the individual sales teams And we felt like that was going to help get technology into the market faster. So that's kind of a run through on a sort of per persona basis of the problems that we're looking to solve. I'm happy to dig into any of those.
One component of this that you touched on kind of from a different perspective, obviously, that there's that component of selling up, right? Like you've got to be able to sell to your sales leaders have to be able to sell to executive leadership that here's why the number that I think we should have makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Let's flip that around though. I know from experience as a sales rep, you get this number at the beginning of the year from your boss and you're like, well, tell me more about how you came about this number. And
Yeah.
it's and it and the conversation is usually a pretty short one and an uncomfortable one. What I think is interesting is I would think that the sales leaders can definitely use this as consensus building amongst their team of like, well, I'm glad you asked the question. Let's pull up MedScout and I'll walk you through how I came about this number. Here's why I think you have X opportunity. Here's why I think these are good targets that I want to move into your account or take out of, or into your territory or take out of your territory. It's always been a very subjective process of setting quota and building territories. And anytime you have that, it's tough to build consensus. So I think that's that might not have been a core intended consequence, but I think that's definitely an added benefit for sure. When you guys were building this product, if you could say like blank sheet of paper, what was like maybe the top two intended consequences of like what ultimately was the thing that presumably it was Casey that was doing this. That might be a better question for him, but what was like the one problem you guys, in a nutshell, wanted to solve? Just build more effective territories, or quicker revenue acceleration. What was the core goal?
Yeah, I think sort of two different perspectives. I mean, you mentioned that the founding insight, right? Casey and working with his dad, that was solving their problem, right? It was
Right.
getting his technology into market faster. So that's sort of the founding, the nugget right there that everything
Right.
a lot was built on. Whenever I came in and started talking to my friends in med tech, I come from a software startup background and especially the last company I was at, kind of a very scaled up cybersecurity company that was selling into the mid market. Think like $25,000 to $100,000 cybersecurity contracts where we put out a lot of content. Those leads were passed over to the sellers. Those sellers had 5 to 6 different tools that helped make them more effective on a day to day basis. They had leads that were scored for them, they had intelligence on those leads, they had playbooks to run against those leads, kind of a litany of things to give them sort of selling superpowers. And whenever I sort of did the marketscape and I would ask, what do you have access to? What do you use to make you more effective in the territory? There wasn't much. There was maybe a CRM in place that a lot of them viewed as sort of value extracting versus value adding. And so for me, it was like, if we can come in and sort of start with simple use cases, but ultimately give these sellers superpowers, then we're going to create something that's really valuable, that's going to get technology into the market faster, and that ultimately is going to create a valuable company, right? So that's what, at a very simple level, I thought the big opportunity was.
Just for my own edification, what is in the software world of legacy, like traditional high tech, were all of those tools built into one resource, or was it like, okay, we're going to pull this from here, we're going to pull this from here, we're going to pull this from here, and then either leadership had to combine all that and distribute it to the reps, or was it up to the reps to go in and get it all separately and make best use of it, or was it in like a one program that they could access? Because I think that's what's unique. What I'm getting at is I think that's what's really unique here is obviously what you guys have now is extremely valuable, and it's an aggregation of like pretty much everything that the rep would need, and you're going to continue to build off of that.
Yeah, it's usually it's going to be different platforms. So like for example, a lot of software teams today are using call recording technology that hooks up to Zoom and then records their calls and then actually uses AI to go in and analyze those calls, figure out where there's objections, and then those calls get routed up to your manager so that they can come in and you can sit down in your weekly one-on-one and say, hey, what went wrong with account XYZ? Let's go through that coaching exercise. And then there's other things that sit inside your email inbox and kind of record interactions there and then sync back to the CRM. So they're usually separate platforms. It just kind of depends on the tool. I think the interesting thing for me was that selling into medical settings is fundamentally different than sitting on Zoom all day and selling software to other software companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Medical device reps can't have all their conversations with key constituents recorded. So therefore, you have to think sort of from a bottoms up standpoint about what does giving these sellers in particular superpowers look like. And so that starts with the individual rep's perspective, how they think about working their territory XYZ. And yeah, we're not going to be everything to everybody. We have some specific use cases we're focused on, but we think that by starting with their unique needs, we built sort of a good all-in-one starting platform that can sit on top of the CRM and then use information in the CRM to become more effective. So I'm sure we'll get into that as kind of part of the demo, but hopefully that gives you some.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I'd like to get into the demo now. I think one thing that it's probably good to get out on the front end though. This does sit on top of like Salesforce.com or Microsoft's. What's Microsoft's platform's name?
Dynamics is there.
Yeah,
They have
so
a Dynamics suite. Yep.
so you guys have you're connected through API, right? So this is like
Mhm.
just talks, syncs up automatically with that. The last comment I'll make that I thought was unique about it was every rep's got a different approach to selling, and I think one of the things that's made software so unique is that they really drive a very specific sales
Yeah.
process, a very specific narrative. It's a talk track. It's objection A gets rebuttal Y.
Yeah. Yeah.
And devices is not like that. One of the things that device companies typically do is they hire people that already theoretically or hopefully already know how to sell. And
Yeah.
so they don't spend a lot of time teaching people how to sell. And so what happens in territory A is usually drastically different than territory B. And yeah, you get, you get best practices that end up bubbling up, but it doesn't happen very often. This seems like an opportunity to really drive consistent behavior and to highlight best practices, and be able to not standardize the sales process, but
Yeah.
certainly direct it, I think, better than without a tool like this. Let's jump into the demo here. I want to get listeners' eyes on this thing. So go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and do the screen share, and let's have you walk us through what you got.
Love it. Sounds good. I'm going to pull up, we'll start in the web app and then we'll pivot over into the MedScout mobile app from there. Cool. Okay. So, one of the things, we designed MedScout around was we wanted to start with capturing your current territory model. So, this is a theoretical account, and I've got Dan with these territories over here. He's covering the Central East, Julie's covering the Southeast, and then Mary Kay is over in the Rocky Mountains. And then now, let's say that I am thinking through what it looks like to hire a fourth rep to cover Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. So it can really quickly come in, highlight these states. We can even do it by a county, zip code level. We can draw custom catchment areas as well, but we'll keep this pretty simple. Let's call this TOLA right now. So that's the first thing, is that as part of our onboarding process, we'll capture your current territory model so that we can start to give you insights and analytics on what's happening in the territory today. And then to my earlier point, help you evolve that territory model as you make commercial progress. So the next thing we'll do is we will capture your unique targeting criteria. So let's say that I've got a company that's really focused on biopsies and ultrasounds. So I'm going to run a search in this territory for these couple of CPT codes. You'll see that we already have information syncing to know that Dan has already identified some of these as prospects. So that's the other thing, is that we can really flexibly sync information from your CRM to identify current accounts. We can tag leads from trade shows to have them show up here. And then as a manager or as reps collaborating, I can get cross pipeline visibility to make sure that we're effectively not overlapping in the territory or collaborating on accounts. One thing that I thought, just another example, would be fun from a theoretical company standpoint is this is a company that is focusing on a intervention for acid reflux disease. So we've got this bucket of CPT codes related to interventional procedures in the esophagus, and then some diagnosis codes related to acid reflux. Now we can come in and customize these, add additional codes, add prescription drugs if we need to, can look within certain hospital systems, and even add things like open payment data, which we'll get to here in a minute. But the core kind of workflow that we're helping to enable for this TOLA rep is that, let's say I'm coming in and planning a trip to New Orleans, so I can really quickly kind of pivot down, get this market in view, and then start to drill in to individual providers to see, hey, is it going to make sense for me to come in and go visit Dr. Pellegrin? So we start here with sort of the firmographic information. We invest a lot in scraping public domain to understand contact information, where they're affiliated, and then we can do deep dives into their different CPT billings across different categories. So if I want to see all the surgery codes, I can get a view on volume there, reimbursement dollars for that's also driving the practice. We've got kind of visibility into how things trend across 17 into 21. And then we can do similar pivots into ICD diagnosis so I can understand what are the digestive diagnosis codes that he's using most often, and is that going to make him a good target? We've got HCPCS data in here as well, prescription drugs.
HCPCS, when you say HCPCS,
Usually that's codes that are either used for durable medical equipment or used in outpatient settings is another place that you see them. So HCPCS codes, effectively.
And how far back does this data go?
Yeah, so on the CPT side, we go all the way back to 2017.
How current is the data? Like, is this real time or what how, how quick can you get it?
Yeah, so right now we have a for-profit license with CMS, and we are purchasing every data set that they make available, updating that on usually a quarterly basis. But if they make it available sooner than that, I should say, we'll purchase and integrate it. So it's effectively as up to date as you can be on the claim side on Medicare data for right now, and then on the firmographic side, so email addresses, affiliations, things like that. We're constantly looking out on the internet,
scraping
in
the internet
information and updating that on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, effectively. So it kind of just depends on the data attribute with regard to frequency.
But it's the point being, it's as up to date as possible.
Yeah. So we're through full year of 21 in the hospital setting right now for almost all of our codes, and we'll continue to update that every quarter, basically. So 6 months behind.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay. So, I didn't mean to cut you off there and lose your
it's all good. This is how a demo should go. It shouldn't be a bunch of me talking. We've also, just to kind of round out the physician profile, we've got inbound referral data. So who's actively sending this doctor patients and what that looks like from a specialty standpoint. And we've also got all the Sunshine Act data from the past 4 years. So if, for instance, I want to see who's coming in, and this doctor needs to do a better job of asking for dinners in New Orleans, but if I want to see who's bringing him lunch, I get sort of the full breakdown of that, and can even focus on, I don't know, let's see, we wanted to just focus on AbbVie. I can see all the different times that AbbVie was in the office, bringing him lunch, what they paid him for. And this really becomes valuable.
This is incredible. I mean, this was the thing that really caught my eye when you demoed this for me. Is it's like, what I would have paid to be able to know who's lining this doctor's pockets, who is he interacting with socially, but also who is he interacting with from a training and education perspective. That type of information, it's invaluable to reps, especially new reps. And to the point of the whole product is revenue acceleration. That's the challenge, is getting new reps into the territory up and running quickly. This is, when I was with J&J, we had binders per account that we were, penciling in all of this information. And obviously, weeks after we, wrote it in there, it was out of date.
Yeah.
But it was the best we had.
Right. And so, I mean, Art, kind of going back to why we built this, the thinking is that once we understand your targeting criteria, we're ingesting all this data on a regular basis. And if things like that change, if a new payer comes in, if they get into a new procedural area, eventually we want to be to the point where we're proactively notifying you about that, right? And then updating all the systems according to how you want your sales process instrumented. So, yeah, we want to take that manual work out of something that the rep has to do on a regular basis. I don't know. I always like doing this. I just went in and plugged in AbbVie as an additional filter here. And then now you can get a view into all of their payments across people that are also billing these codes here. So it's kind of a fun way to cut a market if you want to understand competitive presence.
Sure.
Yeah. So just to kind of keep rolling, go ahead. Sorry. I don't know if you had another question,
Is
Mike.
there any capability now or down the road of looking at referral sources, which physicians got referred over? Or
Yeah.
not which
So
physician, but which physicians refer patients to this
Yep. So
physician?
that's what we've got, this view on Dr. Pellegrin right now, that's updated on a consistent basis for other physicians that are sending patients over where there's claims overlap between these two HCPs. So we've got this
Wow.
data set in, and then we've got an older data set that's a snapshot, a bit more comprehensive, based off of Freedom of Information Act request, that shows historical patterns as well. So this is
That
something.
was not a layup question for the listeners. I had no clue that it could do that. That is a very powerful tool for especially for those businesses that are looking, that market development is a huge component of their business. A lot of times, companies aren't they don't need to have 300 doctors implanting their product.
Nah.
They only need to have 5, 10 doctors implanting their product. They just need to be able to drive patients to that physician, because every time you have to train a physician, especially on a highly technical product line, that there's a ton of money that goes into that, a ton of time,
Yep.
energy. If you can train, just the key users, and the super users, and then drive patients to them, that's big.
Yeah, and it's been a core use case for us at our more scaled customers. You have your to your point, early stage companies are thinking about, hey, I need to convert this from an advisor that helped us out during the early stage process into a treating account, and then find more treating accounts in that market until we feel like we have enough. Once you reach a certain scale, though, what we've helped companies do is, hey, who's seeing the patients that are going to be ultimately sent in for your intervention? And how do we find more of those? What are they prescribing to those patients that precedes the intervention? What are they diagnosing them with? What are the maybe diagnostic tests or other sort of functional tests that they're running that indicate that they're seeing a lot of these patients in your target population? Let's go set up dinners for everybody that's in there to make sure that those doctors know that these treating centers are in the territory, and then the great results that patients are getting. So a lot of our customers will have both, hey, how do we identify net new implanters, treating accounts? And then also we help them build targeting criteria to identify those referral centers in. And that's, to your point, how you can really start to drive revenue at scale. So,
Yep, no
um,
doubt.
so yeah, I mean, I think just to make sure we kind of go end to end here, I'm going to grab all of these and then toss them into a NOLA. Let's call this just my NOLA top 20. And then I can share that with the entire company, or just keep it to myself, depending on how I want to collaborate. All of those opportunities are going to be tagged. And then I'm going to head over to pipelines. And I've got full visibility into my team's pipelines, and then I can just start working these. And so we're going to pivot over to the mobile app, but we can work these in the mobile app as well. So I'm going to start actioning them in the territory. And then once I'm comfortable, I can then automatically sync those as accounts, opportunities, contacts to the CRM, make sure that they get associated with the right account. And then we start syncing information from the CRM to this record in MedScout. So a lot to come from a roadmap standpoint on how we can continue to use information in the CRM to help teams be more effective in the territory. That's just kind of a brief overview. We've also got this list view where as I'm working this NOLA top 20, I've got all the contact information, affiliations here. I can dump in procedural volume if I need to, get that full breakdown here on a per year basis, and then export this out to Excel if I want to take it out of the platform. So it's mainly what we've seen is teams are regularly sort of building and modifying their pipelines, working them in MedScout, syncing them to the CRM. And then, like I said, we'll go over how we can actually use the mobile app in the territory to help you all run or help medical device reps run a more effective day. The last thing really to cover is we've also got these territory dashboards built in to where once you really start working the territory, we can give you statistics on sort of how penetrated you are across accounts, opportunities, and then overall statistics in the territory so that you can kind of compare one piece of ground to another, going back to the earlier use case of as I'm designing territories out, I want to make sure that I'm being thoughtful about how I'm dividing things up and who gets what effectively so that you're kind of creating that buy-in across sales reps and sales management. So,
Skylar,
um,
question for you. Can you go back to the screen where you had it broken out into where they are in process?
yeah,
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm just thinking here that would be is this static or dynamic? Can you create for a customer? Can they create additional
yeah,
columns there? Because what would be interesting is a lot of times, like you've got a rock star rep, they may have a team of like 3 sub reps and 5 clinicals underneath them to be able to allocate like, okay, here, this person's on this territory or on this set of accounts. These reps are covering this set of accounts with targeting these doctors. I think it could even go deeper than just managing, managers managing their reps, but reps managing their teams specifically. Is that static?
no, we that's part of our onboarding process is we get your unique sales stages and we then customize it in MedScout. So fully
Wow.
customizable. And then the other thing that we've done is if you have a CRM in place that's managing pipeline, we can sync updates from those pipelines within Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, and bring them back into MedScout so that everything stays in sync across the two platforms. So yeah, short answer is fully customizable. We want to sync up with your sales motion, not dictate it, basically.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Okay.
So
So
yeah, Michael, if you're
yeah,
cool with it, I was going to go ahead and pull up the mobile app and go from
that's
there.
great. Yeah, let's do that.
Awesome. Oh, I've got my phone up right
Now,
here.
one of the
Um,
other things that I thought was really neat when when we did the demo was to be able to, and I don't know if you can do it from this view or maybe it's only on the desktop view, but to be able to go in and pull up by CPT code what that physician has billed or received in terms of revenue by CPT code over the course of X number of years. Because a lot, one of the easiest things that I think easiest applications for this is rep comes in. Let's say they're take a job with a hernia mesh company and they've never
yep,
sold to general surgeons. They don't know. There's a million general surgeons in their territory. They don't know which ones are doing the most hernias.
yep,
If you could go, with this technology, being able to go in and just pull up CPT code for inguinal hernia, and they've done, if a big doc makes $300,000 in revenue in inguinal hernia, and a doc's got 25, he's probably not somebody you're going to throw on the hot, on the hot list. But if they've got $600,000 in inguinal hernia revenue, that's a doctor that you're going to immediately pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just go back to the web app really quick. Um, we've got both the view on volume here and then reimbursement dollars on a per code basis
Yep.
here as well, to your point. So you can really kind of get a by the type of procedure, whether that be radiology, surgery, pathology, uh, what's driving revenue in the practice for particular patient populations, and then to your point, use that for prioritization within your pipeline. So that's been
Yeah,
a really useful thing for teams in the field. So
absolutely. Yeah, let's shoot over to that the iPhone or the mobile app.
yeah, cool. So I'm gonna pull up that NOLA top 20 list that I made right there. So those were different pipelines that my team had made. So I can come in here and then really quickly drill into a physician profile, get their affiliations, medical school. I can take notes. If I need to, I can update where they are in sales funnel. Or if I want to, I can come back out and then start to visualize where these docs are on a map. And let's just say that I'm at my hotel in New Orleans and I want to start creating a NOLA route. I've added a few other doctors here already. We'll do one more for good measure. Want to have a really busy day in the field, I'm going to add that doc as well. And then what it's going to do is it's going to come in and
No
grab
way.
my current location, which should be my condo here in Austin, and then allow me to optimize the route so that I'm visiting everybody in the correct order. And then it's going to pull up Google Maps and then route me effectively from Austin over into each of the accounts in a way that's going to make the most sense. So you don't have to
That
think
is
through
incredible.
when to visit where, all those sorts of things. So yeah, we wanted to build something that was going to help the reps in the field. And then the idea, obviously, is you can come in, had a great visit with Dr. Silver, take notes really quickly. Let's say follow up Monday, save, and then that's going to sync down to your CRM, and then you don't have to worry about going in and filling out Salesforce or anything whenever you get back to the hotel. So
That is
uh,
incredible. Yeah, no, and this just goes back to my earlier comment about, this isn't just a quarterly or an annual tool that you use to
totally.
build the territory. This is like, I would live and die by this thing if I was in the field. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, more to come on capabilities here. We're excited to keep building this out, but back to the thinking. To your point, this is a dynamic sales motion. It's something you should be revisiting often. You should be referencing often to understand your talking points within a certain account, within a value analysis committee. It's also a field based motion, right? You're out in the field often, so we felt like this mobile app component was going to be big, and we wanted to get that right from the start and also get it into people's hands and get feedback, right? Hey, what would
Yeah.
be helpful in the app for you? So yeah, pretty proud of that.
Absolutely. No, that's great, man. That is great. What so who's the target customer? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but like are you guys targeting startups? Are you targeting the big strategic companies? Is it right now, are you focused mostly in med device, or can this, do you see applications with like digital health companies, biotech, farm? Where are you guys targeting now and moving forward?
Yeah. So right now, I would say device companies and diagnostic companies have been our sort of core focus. Part of that is coming in with a network based on the team between Casey, Senior, Mark, Mesher, our VP of Sales, deep device history. And so that's part of our focus right now. We've seen awesome results with diagnostic companies as well. My goal is once we sort of nail those use cases for those companies and start to expand capabilities, expand access to data, that we're moving into anybody that's selling into the healthcare setting. I
Yeah.
think that we have a shot on goal, at least, of helping to accelerate their sales motion. So, in terms of size of companies, we feel like we have a flexible pricing model that allows us to work with the earliest stage of companies all the way up into the big players. So that we feel like, especially on the early side, that market has been a little bit underserved, Nobody's really developed a platform with them in mind to think through, again, I've got my first 3 reps in place. How do I go to 10 reps, so on and so forth, that we kind of covered earlier. So we're kind of focusing on kind of the smaller end of the market, I would say, versus the big, larger strategic accounts for right now.
You touched on pricing. So what is the pricing model? Is it a SaaS model, or how do you get?
Yeah, we're charging an annual subscription based on the size of the sales team that we're enabling. So, not really trying to complicate it with professional service fees or add ons or modules right now. We know our core use cases, we know we can hit them, and we know that the value is really correlated directly to how many members of your team we're enabling. So, that's been a pretty straightforward conversation. And yeah, that includes all data updates for the life of the contract, XYZ. So pretty straightforward pricing.
So when you guys are going into, who's the, obviously the rep is the end user, but who's the person that you're talking to? Is it the revenue head? Is it the director or VP of commercial operations? All of the above? What's the sales process like?
We need to win the heart and mind of the VP of sales. If they aren't bought in to this as something that's going to solve problems for them in the field, really kind of a non-starter, right? So we think about that person a lot, what their problems are, how we can address those. Within larger companies that have built out ops organizations, they are definitely in the room. Marketing's in the room for making a purchase decision. Sometimes this comes out of their budget. There's a bit of a historical pattern of purchasing large procedural data dumps that marketing would often buy and then just sort of dump on the reps in Excel. We are trying to, we think we have a better mousetrap than that, just to put it really simply. So,
Yeah, it aggregates everything.
Yeah.
And automates.
Marketing's in the room as well. So, yeah, I would say main person that needs to be bought in, VP of sales. And so we'll hop on, make sure that we understand their problems, make sure we understand their go-to-market motion, and then get into a demo. Here's how we think we can help based on our research. Tell us where we're right. Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us things that we can follow up on. And then usually we'll talk to ops and marketing as well as part of that process.
So obviously the current standard of care by and large is just, like you said, manual. These guys doing it on their own and whatnot. There's a couple other companies that are doing stuff kind of similar to this. I don't think that there's anybody that's doing exactly what you guys are doing, but how are you guys differentiated? What makes MedScout, special in comparison to some of the other opportunities out there?
Yeah, feel free to stop me at any point, and we can drill into these. But I mean, I think the first thing is we really designed with the individual rep in mind. We knew that we had to make something that was simple, time to value is really quick, in order to get buy-in from them and to get them to start building their sales plans in MedScout. And then once we got that right, we could start to layer in the sort of analytics and management views for the team. So I think the number one thing that we get a lot of compliments on is just the overall usability and simplicity of the platform. So we kind of hang our hat on that. And that is a direct byproduct, I think, of listening to early user feedback and being able to iterate quickly, ship new features often, and then dogfooding our own product, right? We meet with teams regularly to understand how they're using it in the field. And again, do that one-to-one onboarding. So usability is the number one thing. I think the mobile app experience is a differentiator in the market that really helps you make sure that your team's getting the full value of the solution on a regular basis, to your point, not just something you're looking at on a monthly basis as I'm refreshing my sales plan. We allow you to export data out of the platform and trust that we're providing enough in-platform where you're going to keep coming back, and even will help you sign up to build marketing campaigns. So being flexible on sort of campaign support. And I think that ties sort of one-to-one with the early CRM integrations that we built out. We've sat down with teams, understood how they have Dynamics or Salesforce instrumented, and then built the integration to support them. So kind of flexibility on how you want to run your go-to-market motion and being there to support you, I feel like, is another differentiator. Few other things just to run through really quickly. Go all the way back to 2017 on the data. So kind of a deeper look back is something that we've heard as a differentiator. pricing model in the sense that we have flexibility to support early stage companies at a price point that they can make sure to make this a 10x investment. And then I also think just kind of the last thing that goes back to earlier part of the conversation that we touched on was willingness to sit down and understand what does growth look like for you in the territory. Let's build out your searches so that reps come in and can identify new treating centers, but also let's figure out how to drive referral volume in the territory as well. And having a flexible enough platform where within 2 clicks, reps can either start identifying net new treating centers or additional people to go out for referral activity or to put referral activity against. That has been sort of a value add for our early customers as well. So probably more than you wanted.
No, no, no. It's exactly what I wanted. Highly, it's. I think that one of the things that stood out to me, probably two things that I took from the earlier demo we did a couple days ago was one, it's extremely intuitive. Reps aren't going to take time to work in a platform that's not a easy to use and more importantly probably easy to understand
Yeah.
initially. It's highly intuitive, and then two, the customization of it is, because you know what the masses are going to kind of want and need in general, but to be able to highly customize that and really create a bespoke platform that's tailored just for that organization, I think is really unique. What I want to be sensitive to time here, get you on with your day. What last question I would have is just what's next? Any like, do you guys have any other products coming down the pipeline that you can talk in the public domain about, or is there any big features that are going to be coming out soon?
No new products. We're early on in this, right? Relatively, so we're really excited to continue to develop this core product. I think in terms of where net new capabilities that we're investing in as we move into larger companies that have a deep investment in Salesforce, what we're seeing is that they don't have a really thoughtful way to understand how valuable leads are. So call it lead scoring, and then how those really valuable leads are moving through the funnel, to put it simply. So we're going to be investing a lot in sort of sitting on top of, again, of Salesforce and then helping you understand who your really valuable leads are and potentially who's stuck, right? Who's not moving through there, and then elevating those up to the reps, to the manager. We have some things that we think can really create sort of fun competitive dynamics across reps and drive visibility into who's performing well. To your earlier point in the conversation of got my, top quartile or top 10% of reps that are doing really well in the territory. How can we help understand what they are doing well and kind of permeate that throughout the rest of the team? So there's some gamification and sort of
Gamification is what I was thinking. Yeah, that's really cool.
exactly elements that we want to execute on. And then I think the third area that we're going to be focused on is breaking up. I showed those territory dashboards. That's very much a V1. We want to get into scenario modeling of territory so that as you're making those board presentations for why you need this investment or where you're going to drive growth from, that you can show your current territory model today and then show what scenario A, B, C looks like. And that's coming out of MedScout. And we think that that's also going to be valuable for the earliest stage of companies that are fundraising and need to think through or present a case for commercialization to investors. So we've got some fun things kind of coming down the pipe where we want to work with early stage companies on sort of a discounted basis or things like that to help them raise money and get better technology out in the market. So it's a bit of recency bias. We're talking about all that from a planning standpoint, but that's some of the things that you could expect to see from us later on this year.
That's incredible. No, it's really neat, man. You guys got a very cool product. It's incremental gain in this market is tough. If a product isn't going to have an ability to have a profound impact on the customer, it's oftentimes DOA. And I think you guys have something that really any company out there that's looking to grow the top line would which is everybody would be would be crazy not to take a look at it. So really great job in what you guys have created thus far, and best of luck in moving forward with all of the new initiatives. Excited to see what happens there and watch the company grow. Thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule, but appreciate you coming on. And if people are interested in either A, taking a look at the product, or B, potentially coming on board as an employee of a company of like MedScout, what's the best way for them to reach out? Just the website, or?
Yeah, we've got a request a demo kind of form on the site. That's fine. I'm happy to put my email in the show notes as well. Feel free to reach out. We'll put our VP of Sales' email as well. And then always, we're on LinkedIn a lot too. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn, give us a shout there, and or follow the page. And we try to keep kind of new company announcements coming on the
Yep.
MedScout page. We're going to be more regular about that moving forward. So any of those three ways are more than welcome.
Excellent. All right, man. Best of luck moving forward. Skylar Talley with MedScout. Thanks for joining us today on this edition of The Bleeding Edge of Digital Health, and we'll look forward to catching you guys on the next episode. Take care.